Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by DieHard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 118. And we're in Studio C at MotorWeek World Headquarters in Owings Mills, Maryland. And around our table today are writer-producer Brian Robinson.
Hey-o.
Our road test producer Ben Davis.
Hey now.
Our assistant producer Greg Carlos.
Hey, hey.
And our writer and the podcast producer, Patrick Lucas.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, we'll have a lightning round. We'll have a viewer question. We'll even have a little time for a rant and rave, but we're going to start off with a vehicle that a lot of people have been waiting for. Very mainstream, and I just got back from the introduction of it, and that's the 2016 Honda Pilot. Honda's new 3-row, 7- and 8-passenger crossover. I guess the most notable thing I can say about it is that it now looks more or less like a lot of other 3-row crossovers. They've ditched the box they had before. They made it a little bit longer, but it doesn't necessarily have that much more room on the inside because it's no longer square. It still has a V6 engine, but it's up in power. It is now direct injected, so it's part of their Earth Dreams. They've not put a 4-cylinder in it, but they're still claiming segment best fuel economy. Transmissions, they've joined the 9-speed transmission deal, and basically a 6-speed automatic is standard, but a 9-speed comes in most trim levels, I think, from EXL up. A very nice vehicle, much quieter than before, not as rough riding as before, but yet not soft either. Competent handling, first time 2-row moonroof, I should say 2-port moonroof, a panoramic moonroof, although there is a structural member between the two of them. Almost every feature you can think of that's on a mass market 3-row SUV that we've seen in the last 2 years is either standard or optional, including most of the safety features. The only thing that I would note, I'd note a couple of things after driving it. The variable cylinder management that goes between 6 and 3, that's still there, works very smoothly. It has automatic stop-start. That was one of the most noticeable stop-start systems that we've seen lately. It wasn't particularly smooth. The 9-speed, on the other hand, we've complained a lot about 9-speed transmissions around here. It was extremely smooth and probably one of the best ones I've driven. And again, it was very quiet. They put acoustic glass on the front side glass. Any questions about it? I mean, this thing's going to fly off the lots, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hinted around it, but so what does it have that no one else has in the segment? Is it just their reputation, or is it just the fuel economy, or what's?
I think it's the fact that it's a Honda. Honda has a reputation for basically coming late to the party and then gathering up the best things that everybody else did and putting them in a little bit better overall package. And I think that's basically what they've done again. They sat back with the old box, which, by the way, I should say is selling like crazy right now, the outgoing model. And they've incorporated everything. They make a big deal about all the safety features like blind spot monitoring. But typical Honda fashion, some of the safety features are not available until you get really the top model. What sets it absolutely apart from other in its class? Well, the 9-speed automatic is certainly rare. The variable cylinder management is rare, and that gives them, with plenty of power, a good V6, very good fuel economy for its class. Beyond that, I'm kind of hard pressed.
Wow.
But it's done. It's again a typical Honda job of doing what is expected in a smoother, more refined, and very desirable package. They have some things that we've seen before, like the cargo floor in the very back is reversible, so you've got a rough side for loading things like bags of mulch, and you've got the carpeted side. The one seat, the middle second row seat, has an easy slide feature. Again, we've seen that before, but theirs happens to work really, really well. They've got lots of ports to charge. I think five ports for your individual devices, USB ports, and 4 of them you can actually charge devices on. So
pricing about the same, I assume, but maybe
I
on the high end.
I think it's going to be a little higher. I mean, they haven't really said yet. It's very possible that the base model will be right around 30, but I think to get anything on it, they sell almost none of the LX. I think you're looking mid-30s to start getting into the EX and the EXL.
So in the inevitable USA Today and Cars.com seven passenger SUV shootout, where is this going to place?
Frankly, I think I'll be very surprised it doesn't get first. Now, that particular shootout has always been a little bit favored towards things like the Durango.
Okay.
Of course, that's probably going away. We hear that's going to be replaced by some 3-row Grand Cherokee type vehicle. I can certainly see the Highlander giving them some run for their money. I think
they look very similar.
I think it's got more space inside than an Explorer. It does. I should touch on the all-wheel drive system. If you've got a current Pilot, you're used to having the lock button so you can get out of tough situations by locking the 2 axles. This one does away with that. It's got the mode switch that we've seen on a lot of automatic systems. There's a modes, one for snow, there's one for mud, and some others. The mud seems to work very, very well. They had some demonstrations and video of it being in some really slick stuff, and they were able to power out of it without a lock button, and also that's with street tires. So they seem to have done their homework. They've gone to a system I think that a lot of purists would rather have something like that lock button, but doesn't look like they'll need it. So Honda Pilot going on sale in June, and when you think of the Pilot, the HR-V, the new small one, and they've just and revamped the CR-V, refreshed it. They've done their entire crossover range in a matter of months, refreshed it or all new. And I would say if you're a Honda dealer, you're probably going to have a very good summer.
You got to be loving that.
You got to be loving it. Speaking of crossovers, let's move on now to a new entrant into the mix, the Fiat 500X. And we should point out this is, am I correct, Patrick? This is Fiat's first all-wheel drive vehicle?
It is. I guess they really only have 3 vehicles out right now, including this one. But yeah, they were talking about this being their big, moneymaker, and this is going to be their halo car, at least for the time being. It's a global car. Yes, their first all-wheel drive. They aimed it right at North America with, the whole compact crossover segment exploding right now. Everybody seems to have one. This one is typical Fiat. You've got the weird trim levels. There's pop and easy and lounge and trekking and all that stuff. It's got that, Italian style, big headlights, Fiat badging, sort of a rounded, very European looking crossover.
And now this is really, we would classify this as a subcompact. So this goes up against, Jeep Renegade, which it actually shares chassis with.
Shares chassis.
And
it's the
Juke and things like that.
Yeah, it's the FCA, their small, wide 4x4 or small, wide all-wheel drive platform, which actually gets a lot of use in that company. I think the ProMaster City is also on that. The 500L is on that.
500L's on it.
The all-wheel drive system, I wish I could tell you more about it. They didn't really have a great demonstration of it.
It's basically the base system you can get in the Renegade.
It's
a fully automatic system.
It's a very basic system. It's basically the rear axle is totally disconnected until it senses some slipping, and you can't really engage it. It just kind of sends a little power back.
So it's a rudimentary all-wheel drive.
Correct, and which I guess is enough. It'll probably be enough for
most
what people are going to drive this car are going to get into. The interior was actually the biggest surprise for me. It got a good amount of style. Obviously, Fiat is good on making their cars very unique and interesting looking, but very comfortable. Materials felt nice. There's obviously some hard plastics. It's a pretty inexpensive car, but they got a good splash of color in there. They get body color accents. The leather seats on the higher trims felt very nice, though very comfortable. To drive, it was, I drove the 180 horsepower 2.4 liter and the 9-speed automatic. It felt like plenty.
How is that 9-speed? That's the one that they've been developing for Chrysler,
right? So we've seen it. We've seen it in the 200.
Jeep Renegade.
The Renegade,
yeah.
Cherokee. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. It felt a little better. It feels like, I don't know if they actually are, but it felt like they're making progress.
Yeah, it's getting better. They keep revising, updating the software.
Well, then, it felt all right. There's definitely some hiccups along the way, but if you're doing normal city driving, some light back roads driving kind of stuff, it's fine.
If you weren't hung up on, say, a Jeep, I mean, a lot of people just want a Jeep.
Right.
And you look at the Renegade, you look at this, and look at other stuff that's in this market, the Juke, the Trax from Chevrolet. What would motivate you to buy the 500X?
I think it's what the entire Fiat brand for every car they've put out is it's their unique kind of appeal. The way I frame this was it's a unique appeal but a very mainstream feel. So it's a very mainstream vehicle in a mainstream segment with mainstream features like all-wheel drive and a 9-speed automatic. But
it looks Italian. It has
it's
style.
just got the certain character that not a lot of other cars in this segment have.
Yeah. Looks like an interesting vehicle. Any questions? 500X, is it on sale yet?
It is on sale in late May, so yes.
Here we go. Okay, we're going to move now to something we normally don't talk about in our podcast, some of our long-term vehicles, but we've been doing something special with Volkswagen, running through all of the various models of their Golf / GTI lineup and spending about 90 days or so with each one. Currently, we have their all-electric e-Golf in as a long-term. And we have it plugged in right outside our offices. I think everybody at the tables had a chance to take a spin in it and take it home overnight and so forth. So what do you think about it? Is this is the electric car for you, our type of commuting where most of us live within, 30 miles or so of work? Does it work? And have they lost anything in the transition from the Golf, which we all love, to the e-Golf?
I drove it over the weekend. I'll start. I think it's the more time I spend in it, the more time EVs become more realistic to me. I mean, I drove it all weekend. I did everything I would normally do on the weekend. I never had I came close to using all the range because we did quite a bit of running around, but plugged it in overnight. Was ready to go in the morning.
It didn't hamper you.
No, not at all. And it still drives like a Golf. And I tell you, when I drove into work this morning, it's like every other vehicle. It's how you drive it. I mean, it was fully charged when I left. I live about 15 miles away. I've dialed it up to Eco Pro, dialed up the regen braking to max. It was 101 miles range when I left my house, and there was still 95 miles on the range when I got to work. I was driving it, so I only used up 6 miles of range, driving it as efficiently and safely as I could. And,
I've had the same experience. It seems to either the gauge is wrong, which I doubt, or it's just seems to hold more charge back. And if you drive sanely, you don't seem to use up the mileage that the typical Leaf when I would drive it home and back, I'd probably, let's say the round trip was 24 miles, I'd probably use close to 30 miles of range. And when I drove the e-Golf in, I think maybe I used 8 or 9, something like that.
Seems to be pretty stingy holding on to the miles.
I like it a lot. I think that's the good way to do it is take an existing car platform that is proven and a lot of people like.
And that's good.
Right, exactly. And they did very little to it in terms of, how they stow the battery pack and all that to alter or to mess with that formula they had already struck with the Golf and GTI and all that. I love it. It feels like a totally normal car. I love that you can dial in different aggressiveness or whatever the word is, settings for the regen recuperation. So you can get off the gas and it'll start braking for you. And there's like 3 different levels of that. So it's nice if you're feeling kind of lazy. Dial it all the way up and you just take your foot off the gas and the car will stop itself and you're getting back some range. But I like it. It feels like a
Golf.
Totally normal car.
Yeah. Everything they pretty much said. It's one of my favorite EVs. I think, realistically, you're still going to have another car because it's when I decide if I'm going to take it home or not, it's like, what am I doing that night or that weekend? Is it going to be, just here and there? Or if I really got to go somewhere, it's just out of the question because I can't do it. But as far as an EV, comparing it to the Leaf and maybe like Soul, it's great. I like it a lot.
Vinny, anything?
Great car, no doubt about it. Personally, I would need more range for to be a mainstay in my life. I just got too many variables going on all the time. I
agree with that. It's great, I think, to see, though, building on what you said before, Patrick, about them taking a car and basically just making a very good car a very good EV. So our impressions of the e-Golf are very high, and we've just gotten into our shop a couple of the new 240-volt chargers that are portable, that basically you can throw in the trunk and not just have to do a 120 charge overnight. If you've got 240 in your house, you can wire it into your garage easily. And where a couple of years ago these cost several $1,000s, they're now down to about $600 or so. So the market is coming down to meet EVs, and I think that I know around my house as a second or even third car it would make a lot of sense. Thanks, everybody. Now let's move on to our lightning round. Our panelists have 2 minutes to debate a trending automotive topic. And when the time is up, Patrick will hit the bell. And here we go. Audi has announced that their newest 2-liter TFSI fuel-injected engine, direct fuel-injected engine, will be used in the next Audi A4. Here's the big deal. Rather than downsizing it like a lot of other people are doing, like going to a 1.8 or a 1.6, Audi has chosen to tweak its engineering for increased efficiency. They're using things like a shorter intake time and quicker intake valve closure. A lot of technical stuff there we won't get into. What do we think this says about the trend of future small engines? Are they going to continue to downsize? Are we going to see more smaller engines with turbos? How much can they tweak? What do we think the engine, say 5 to 10 years from now in the standard car will look like? And I have to say we have to assume that the fuel economy rules are going to go into effect as they're written. So what do you think?
Well, I got to think, to me, this sounds more of a marketing decision than anything else. Audi and Volkswagen have so much in common that, as Audi, you got to draw the line somewhere where you're not stepping down into Volkswagen's territory where people aren't going to want to step up to the Audi.
Where the 1.8 is very prevalent.
To me, it looks like, hey, we need to draw a line in the sand here and keep the 2-liter as our base engine. That's kind of what it looks like to me more than any engineering decision.
If you want super fuel economy, you can go to Volkswagen. And after all, they're the same corporation, so they count towards the same fuel economy rules. That's a very interesting take. Anybody else? It's most experts, and I'm not one, on the powertrain engineering will tell you that you cannot meet the fuel economy standards a few years from now without doing some downsizing. Of course, you could argue that this engine is replacing a lot of 6-cylinders.
Granted, this is from a press release, so there might have been a lot of PR jargon and spinning bad facts to sound good, something like that. But they said that with the tweaks they've done to this engine, they could achieve on the U.S. cycle somewhere around like 47 miles per gallon. Maybe that's probably highway.
Well, but that's also a figure. That's not the figure. We should caution everybody. That's not the figure you see on the windshield. Yeah. But okay, that's very good. That's very high.
Yeah, they are claiming that this is not just. They're claiming that it's more than just a marketing stunt or a way to not step on VW's toes. That this is actually. Like major engineering, and like this, they could do that to other engines. Their 3-liter turbo that they have in the A6 and stuff like that.
Well, so far, I have to say we've seen some pretty clever stuff out of the automakers. If you look back 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, they said no more V8s. V6s would become scarce. Here we've got V6s with variable cylinder management, automatic stop-start, direct injection, all of this. So obviously, there's a lot of tricks still up the sleeves of engineers to get a little bit more life out of 4-cylinders.
Yeah, I think they can do a lot more with taking weight out of cars, too.
Yeah.
Granted, all the safety systems just keep adding weight back in. But I think there's a lot of room there.
Don't ring the bell.
Go ahead.
We'll continue
Take it
to
back.
see the downsizing of turbocharging and turbocharging. I just hope that not all of them require premium fuel because it can be a bummer a lot of times.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, especially with the price of the differential between regular and premium. Thanks very much. That was an interesting conversation. Okay, let's turn now to a viewer question. And Larry asked, Larry, I don't know. Are there any vehicles available in the U.S. that do not have a center console that extends up under the dashboard? I'd like to be able to move my feet around when on long drives with the cruise control on. I used to buy minivans because they had an open area beneath the dash, but that space is no longer provided. Even pickup trucks no longer have the space available for the front seat occupants' feet. Well, I'll just jump in here and say you can still get a Chrysler minivan without or with a removable front console, and there's still split bench seats in some pickup trucks.
You can get a Wrangler and take the door off and just hang your foot out.
Well, that's another solution.
Keep your feet near the pedals, Larry. That's what I'm saying.
Get a motorcycle, Larry.
But as near as I can tell, there's no car with a bench seat or without a console.
Is the Honda Odyssey the one that has the shifter up on?
Yeah, a lot of the Honda stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the Honda
wheel?
stuff, and for that matter, the Chrysler stuff
So
too.
is that open? I can't remember.
They still have stuff down there. Yeah,
Yeah.
They need that space for packaging of so much electronics, and who knows
Yeah.
what else they package in
Well,
there.
there's an awful lot of wires that run down through there. To my knowledge, though, with the exception possibly of a pickup truck, and I think you can still get the removable front console on the Chrysler minivans. I don't know.
Oh, you know what? I was thinking about
we
this
got it.
question.
We got one.
The BMW i3 we had in.
That's
thought
right.
I did.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
There you go, Larry. For $60,000, you can get yourself an all-electric car, the BMW i3, and you can stretch out for that whole 100 miles of range you got until you turn on the little gas engine. Very good, Patrick. Hey, Larry, I all kidding aside, a lot of people that are particularly tall have this issue, and it doesn't look like the manufacturers are doing a whole lot to address it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely gone away. Like I said, because they need that space for packaging and also safety. They try to confine you in the smallest box as they can for
So the
safety
airbag will
reasons.
work.
Yeah, if your feet are off to the side or something, that's not going to be good in an accident.
That's why they invented rest stops on the highway.
Yeah, I just saw some comparison between it was a couple of BMWs a few years apart, and one you had this big wide open space, and the next one you had all this confines again to keep you where the airbags will all do their job.
Yeah.
So, Larry, I hope that helps a little bit. Maybe a pickup truck is in your view. Another one, though, that I understand you could probably still get is a Cadillac DTS, a used one. I think still has a bench seat available. Look around, you might find that. It's a very comfortable car. Okay, we're going to move along now to our newest segment on our podcast, Rant and Raves. Just anything or anyone around the table wants to sound off about. Anybody got anything stuck in their craw this week?
Nothing stuck in there, but it is
Not in yours.
Claw, craw, whatever.
It is a rant rave, but I'll go ahead and rave about the onslaught of hot hatches that we've seen coming out here
Finally.
lately. I mean, it's awesome. We've got Golf R400, which is coming to the States apparently. You've already got the Focus ST, Fiesta ST. You're going to have a Focus RS finally. The new Civic hatchback's
have
coming.
a hot rod version.
A3?
We're just getting slammed with all these, and I enjoy it. It's awesome.
Do you think this is generational? It has to be. I mean,
It must be, yeah, because it's all of a sudden. And I mean, give Ford credit because they're coming out with all this stuff. I mean, so they've already got the Focus Fiesta, and they got another Focus coming out. So yeah, I think the manufacturers are hearing the young people screaming that we want these hot hatches.
Yeah.
You can almost not buy a pure sedan in a mainstream car in Europe. Everything, if it doesn't have a fifth door on it, nobody wants it.
Well, I think it's cool because one company makes a really good one, and then they see that people are raving about it, and so every other company's like, well, we can make one just as good, if not better. So
Or
let's
we've
do
got
that.
one sitting in XYZ country.
Exactly.
Let's federalize it and bring it over.
Well, I mean, maybe Mercedes shouldn't have thought that. I mean, GLA, I don't know.
Well, GLA is more a crossover, but
it's so close to a hatch.
Call it what you want. I call it a hatch.
I think part of it is just the world marketing of everything too. Instead of having one hatch they sell in Europe and another hatch they sell in U.S., they kind of build them all the same specs. So that's allowed them to bring stuff over here a little easier.
On the other hand, when they aim it at a high, and when they don't call it an SUV and they don't put all-wheel drive on it, and they aim it at a higher clientele, like the Honda Accord, it doesn't seem to work. So I don't know. but it does seem to be something that the younger population seems to be driving. Anything else?
People
Go
need
ahead.
to buy them. I don't know how the sales are, but anytime people, call out for something and then manufacturers offer it, if people don't buy them, they don't leave them there for too long.
Comes and goes.
Time for a Fit SI. I think we were talking about that last week, weren't we?
Yeah.
That'd be
sweet.
awesome.
I think that would be fun.
That'd be the hottest.
Yeah.
Even that Sonic RS we had a year or two
Yeah.
ago, that was fun.
And it didn't have any extra power. It was just
Yeah, it
nicely
was-
done.
yeah.
Okay, that's our rant and rave for this week, and that brings to a close our MotorWeek podcast, number 118. I want to thank everybody around the table, our writer-producer Brian Robinson, our road test producer Ben Davis, assistant producer Greg Carlos, and writer Patrick Lucas. Thanks to our audio engineer Jim Bigwood, our podcast creator Bob Mixter, and Patrick again for being our producer. To everyone out there, thanks very much for listening to our podcast and for visiting MotorWeek on your local public television stations and on the Velocity Cable Channel. Till next time, thanks for listening and watching MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.